What's up, y'all? TBrown31 here with JaboctheGreat. Welcome back to The Last Word. It has been a while since you've seen us. We tried last week to get the season going. Things didn't really turn out too well, but we're back with week 2, and that just gives us a whole lot more to talk about. 2 weeks into the season, still very early, but a lot of action on Sunday, pretty good action. And let's just start with probably the best game of the week. And you were talking before, you said the best game of the season so far, even better than Bills, Ravens, Cowboys, and Giants. I mean, this was a pretty interesting game. I mean, not too much offense. I should say not too much scoring early on. Definitely a good bit of offense for the Giants. Russ was absolutely cooking out there, but end of the day, defense, that one interception at the end, and then penalties by some stupid linemen ended up costing the Giants in this one. They dropped 0-2. Dallas, they stay right there at 500. At least keep right there, one game behind the Eagles in the division. But man, this was a crazy game, start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was definitely my game of the week, and as you said, as you kind of revealed there, for me right now, I think it's game of the year. I love that Bills Ravens game. We talked about that one last week in our what will now be Lost Media episode 1 of the 2025 season. But I think this game for me was just like, I think seeing vintage Russ just like throwing lasers downfield, some of the catches that like Malik Neighbors made, things like that, they were on fire. The Cowboys looked like they were actually struggling for a little bit, and then they caught fire. Both these teams collectively put up 41 points in the fourth quarter, and then after doing that, they actually went down to the end of the wire in overtime before that field goal was kicked. The Cowboys got possession 3 times, so we got this fiery shootout between these two teams, especially in the fourth quarter. Dak was cooking. George Pickens was hot. CeeDee Lamb was doing pretty well. Russ was doing great. Malik Neighbors was doing great. Cam Scadaboo had a good little, a good little drive put together where he got down there and got them a touchdown. It was just like everyone that you could think of that would like be a name worth mentioning was on fire. And then they get the ball back. Malik Neighbors hits that night celebration, and Brandon Aubrey might be the best kicker ever. 64-yarder to go 2 overtime, and he had a less impressive but still impressive 46-yarder to seal it at the end of overtime after the two teams couldn't get it together. Just a really good old-fashioned, I think, division rivalry game. I enjoyed every bit of it. I couldn't believe that how much it kept going back and forth, especially in that fourth quarter. So thought it was very fun. Not two teams I would ever really root for in most situations. I do have CeeDee Lamb in fantasy, so I was keeping a close eye on the game. But it was definitely worth spending the first part of my Sunday watching this game all the way through.
Yeah, and sticking with the East, like I said, the Cowboys are right behind the Eagles, along with the Commanders right there. Giants, they do start 0-2, which, I mean, really not that surprising, but they at least did show, hey, Russ still has it. I know that a lot of talk about Jackson Dart this, Jackson Dart that. Just give us some time. I mean, Jesus Christ, they were trying to bench Russell Wilson after game 1 with no O-line. So calm down. Not saying Russ is going to throw for 400 every game, but let's try to relax a little bit there, not overreact. But yeah, Eagles, they win the Super Bowl rematch against the Chiefs. I mean, low scoring kind of game, defensive game, especially there's like that clip going around of Chris Jones at the end talking to Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts, I'm not going to repeat it, but he came back. And look, if Jalen Hurts, if he can throw for 100 yards and they win, that's fine. I mean, even Saquon Barkley, he didn't even have 100 yards rushing. So, look, the Eagles, they win. I'm not going to go crazy. I know the Chiefs starting 0-2 now, but they played 2 good teams to start, the Super Bowl champions and the Chargers, who, they played last night. They won again. I think this might be the year the Chargers really try to make some noise in the playoffs. So they played 2 good teams. Chiefs should be fine, but they end up playing the aforementioned Giants in week 3. So somebody's going to start 0-3.
Yeah, the Chiefs have had a rough start to their season. It's the first time they've been 0-2 since, I think, 2014. So not something that Chiefs fans are entirely used to right now, but it's not like the Chiefs weren't in misery before they got Patrick Mahomes and worked their way up to being everybody's least favorite team. So, it's the Chiefs fans have been through a lot. I'm not going to pretend that if a Chiefs fan has been there for a long time, I'm not going to pretend that they've only seen glory. the Chiefs were in a pretty rough condition. And so, they're back in that kind of space seemingly because they're 0-2, but I think this team will get it together. Now, what is funny is people are saying that, Russ might cook and drop the Chiefs to 0-3. I think that would be the most hilarious option possible. And at that point, I'd say it's maybe time to start panicking. Obviously, the Giants show that they can be a good football team. They got to clean up some of those penalty issues, which I'm sure Brian Dable will spend all week talking about. But the Eagles also, they look pretty strong in this game. It was a close one. It was a defensive battle. These two teams clearly hate each other now. They've seen each other so much in such big moments. And I think they really are starting to genuinely dislike one another. And that's a good football rivalry. So I think this game kind of played out that way. It was gritty. It was tough. Nobody could get anything easy. The Eagles didn't really even attempt very much beyond the 10-yard line or 10-yard marker. They kind of just short worked their way down the field over and over again. And then Harrison Butker also missed a field goal, which would end up leading to essentially this 3-point loss. Right? You factor that field goal, and maybe it changes some other decisions, but flat line, if he hits that field goal, it's at least tied, and they go into overtime or something. So that's it's a tough one for the Chiefs to fall 0-2, but it is a tough start to the season. Losing to the Super Bowl champs, who are still pretty hot, and losing to a Chargers team that's defense looks really good, and Justin Herbert has also been absolutely cooking so far.
When you look around the league at these teams that are 2-0, you see Bills, not really surprising. Chargers again, expecting them to be better. Bengals 2-0, which, considering the fact that the Bengals always start slow, good, and considering that they also lost Joe Burrow in the game the other day as well. I mean, that having Browning come in, finish that game, and they get the win against Jacksonville, impressive. But obviously now with Joe Burrow being out for however many months, you don't know. So that's probably incredibly frustrating for him and for the team. You got all these guys paid. This is really the year you missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. You want to get back there. The last time they were there, of course, AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. So disappointing there. And then, like you mentioned, the Colts are also 2-0. But then over in the NFC, you got a lot more. The entire NFC West is 2-0, which is kind of crazy. I mean, it is a good division, but usually you don't see that. The Seahawks are the lone team with a 1-1 record. Eagles 2-0, Packers 2-0 after they beat Washington, and then the Buccaneers. I look, honestly, I think the NFC South should just forfeit. I mean, Panthers, Saints, just go ahead and forfeit the division this year. You're not going to compete. I know the Panthers came back in the game against the Cardinals, but I mean, we've seen a lot of nonsense from them over the past 7 years. So I don't even know what to really say about Carolina anymore. And Falcons, like you mentioned, that Falcons Vikings game. I mean, not fantastic, but Falcons came out with a good win. So I mean, maybe they might make some noise, but I think Buccaneers they absolutely should have the division on lock once again.
As far as the 0-2 teams, I don't think the Giants need to panic. I think they've showed flashes of being good, but I also think that this year is more just like what can we establish for next year? We don't need to look at the Super Bowl. We're a decent team, but we're in a division with the Eagles, Commanders, and Cowboys. It's going to be tough. It's not likely that we get to the playoffs unless we can put on an incredible run, and one of those teams, has a pitfall. So what can we do? How can we compete? How good can we look? What can Russ get out of us for this year? So I think that they shouldn't panic. I think they can definitely finish with a decent-ish record, but they're not in the most set-up situation for success. And then in the NFC South, the Panthers and Saints should go to the XFL and figure it out, and then they come back in a decade, and we'll figure it out from there. I had a lot of hope for the Panthers before the season. After watching 2 games, that is gone. And the Saints, I thought would be the worst team in football this year just because of the things going on. They are technically the bottom team in the NFC South right now. I actually do think that the Panthers have played worse than the Saints have in their first 2 games. So that's a little tough to go with. Now, as far as the AFC, it's a little more complicated. The Dolphins, I think they should panic. I think things are not looking good. That first game, terrible. That second game, rough. The Patriots have a good defense. I think the second game definitely isn't as bad, but they got to get some more explosiveness out of that offense. That's supposed to be his whole image. They haven't found it at all. The Jets with Justin Fields put up an incredible game against the Steelers, and then maybe one of the worst games you could put together against the Bills. Before Justin Fields got concussed, he went 3 for 11 for 27 yards, and he had 49 rushing yards. Still not really impressive. Then he got concussed. That is not on him. I'm not going to blame him for that. But he wasn't playing well before that, which is tough because he played really well against the Steelers. So I don't know if the Jets need to panic, but if Tyrod Taylor comes in, it could be a little tough. Maybe they give them a little bit of a spark. They survive on willpower, but I'm not sure. Talked about the Chiefs already. I don't know if I would say the Browns need to panic, but I'm sure as if you've seen anything on social media ever, people are ready for a quarterback change 2 games in. They drafted Shador. Maybe it's time you give it a shot. I think this is a tough division to throw a rookie into, but they are 0-2, and they've kind of been used to being the laughingstock of that division. So maybe they want to try to get a little more competitive. They can do something drastic. I don't know if I would say it's panic time, but it definitely is tough. If I'd say there's an 0-2 team that doesn't need to have a panic moment, but definitely needs to have a what is going on, I would say it's the Houston Texans. These guys are 0-2, and they honestly shouldn't be. They definitely, they fumbled it against the Bucs last night. Baker Mayfield dialed in, locked in, did what he had to do, got that 1-point win. Week 1, Texans put on a pretty tough performance. It was one of the ones, again, that episode's going to be lost media. But when we talk about things that stood out in a concerning way, Terrence did mention that Texans performance against the Rams was, kind of astonishing because of how bad they did. This team shouldn't be that bad, I guess is really all I have to say. There should be a lot more hope in that Texas team. For the Titans, should they panic? Yes. I think that Cam Ward is great. I think he's shown in many plays that he's great. But I think they need to realize that if they don't do things to fix that team around him, he is going to die. He is in a war zone every play. It takes too much for him to be able to get the ball out to somebody. If somebody gets open, he's just in a dangerous situation. I actually did have some worries when he was being drafted. I thought, he's one of those hyper-mobile quarterbacks that I think is really good. They're very fun to watch. I love Cam Ward in college, but you always kind of worry about how they'll transition to the NFL. And right now, under that Titans team, I'm not sure that Cam Ward is going to have a great time for the next couple of years. And that is, kind of the spirit of being a rookie quarterback. If you're good in college, you're not going to the best team in the NFL. You are going to go to a situation where it's going to be a lot on your shoulders. But the Titans don't necessarily need to panic in the sense of they got to make the Super Bowl this year, but they got to find a way to protect Cam Ward and make that team a little more appealing for him. Because I do think they found a golden piece to build around, and they've got to be able to make that work.